Mark Zuckerberg is building an AI version of himself so employees can feel closer to him. What a fucking weirdo. Meta currently has 79,000 employees. Zuckerberg is, by any measure, difficult to reach. So his solution, according to the Financial Times, is a photorealistic AI-powered version of himself, trained on his speech patterns, his tone, his public statements, his current views on company strategy, that employees can interact with on his behalf. So Zuckerberg is personally involved in training and testing it, and the stated goal is connection. So an executive exercising authority through a synthetic proxy at scale with no clear mechanism for employees to know when they should be talking to a Zuck simulation versus a real communication from their employer. When AI Zuckerberg gives you feedback on your work, for example, is that a managerial act? When it's wrong, when the simulation misrepresents his views or says something that affects how someone does their job, who is now accountable? These questions won't have answers yet. Meta hasn't provided them, and with their track record, I doubt that they've even prioritized asking them. And then there's the blatant parasocial risk that I think is really underexplored as part of this story. We already know synthetic intimacy has consequences. There is currently a wrongful death lawsuit in the United States after a teenager died, and that was linked to AI companions. Meta knows this territory. They've been building AI characters since 2023, and they've already had to restrict teenager access after users generated sexually explicit personas. They understand what happens when people form unhealthy attachments to synthetic personalities. So, what then happens when a junior employer having a hard time turns to AI Zuckerberg for guidance because it's available, because it responds, because it represents someone with authority who might actually understand the company that they work at? Who is responsible for what comes next? And what is the worker giving up by interacting with it? And there's a context that makes all of this harder to dismiss as eccentric founder behaviour. This project is landing at the same moment that Meta is reportedly preparing to lay off 10% of its workforce and rolling out tracking software that records employee keystrokes, mouse movements and screenshots without an opt-out to train AI agents to perform white-collar tasks autonomously. The synthetic CEO, the surveillance infrastructure, the looming headcount reduction, it's the combination of all of these that really frames the picture. The cult of personality idea is tempting, but I understand the instinct to follow it. But the deeper issue isn't that Zuckerberg has an inflated sense of self-importance, though he most certainly does. It's the relationship between a worker and their employer is now being mediated purely by product, and nobody asked whether or not that was a good idea, and nobody's built governance architecture to manage what happens when it goes wrong. Leadership has always required accountability as its counterweight. Authority without accountability is just unwieldy power. And right now, nobody can tell who answers for what AI Zuckerberg does. And that should concern you, whether you work at Meta or not.